"No one marries a fat girl, sir, but I can cook and raise children," the mail-order bride said. Maria had always dreamed of a better life. Growing up in a small village in the Philippines, she learned early how hard life could be. Her parents worked long hours in the fields, and Maria spent most of her days helping her mother cook, clean, and take care of her younger siblings. She was not a thin girl like some of the other young women in her village, but she was strong, kind, and full of hope.
Her mother often told her, "Beauty will fade, Maria, but kindness and skill will take you far."
Maria held on to that advice, though she could not help feeling self-conscious when people whispered about her weight. As she grew older, Maria realized that staying in the village might mean living a life of struggle, marrying someone she did not love, or simply fading into the background. When she heard about the opportunity to become a mail-order bride in the United States, she felt a mixture of fear and excitement. It was a chance to escape poverty and to build a new life, even if it meant leaving her family behind for a long time. She prayed quietly every night that she would find someone who could see her for who she truly was, not just her appearance. The day of her departure arrived, and Maria felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. She packed her small suitcase carefully, including a few dresses, her favorite cooking utensils, and a small photograph of her family. At the airport, she clutched her ticket tightly, trying not to let the tears fall as she said goodbye to her mother.
"Be strong, Maria,"
her mother whispered, pressing a small charm into her hand. "You can do this.
"You have a good heart. That is what matters." The flight to the United States was long, and Maria spent much of the time staring out the window, imagining what her new life might be like.
She wondered about the man she was going to meet, David, and whether he would like her. She tried to ignore the nervous flutter in her stomach, reminding herself that she was capable, resourceful, and kind.
When Maria finally arrived at the small airport in the Midwest, she felt the cold air hit her face. She had never experienced such a winter before, and she shivered as she adjusted her coat. David was waiting for her near the exit. He was taller than she had imagined, with strong shoulders and kind eyes, though they carried a quiet skepticism. Maria took a deep breath and stepped forward, offering a polite smile. "Hello, Maria?"
David asked, his voice calm but cautious.
"Yes," she said softly. Her heart beat fast.
David gave a small nod and gestured toward his truck.
"Welcome! Let's get your things inside."
As they drove to his farm, Maria looked out the window at the endless fields and quiet houses. It was so different from her crowded village. The air smelled fresh, and the snow sparkled under the weak winter sun.
Maria felt a mixture of awe and nervousness. She hoped she could adapt to this new world, even if it was so unlike anything she had known.
When they arrived at the farmhouse, David showed her around. It was a modest place, with wooden floors that creaked and a kitchen that smelled faintly of old wood and spices. Maria's eyes widened as she looked around.
"It's very beautiful,"
she said softly, careful to sound polite. David nodded.
"It's home,"
he said simply. Maria wanted to say something more, something that would make him like her, but her nerves made her tongue heavy. Instead, she remembered the advice her mother had given her.
"Show your skills, be helpful, and let your heart speak for itself."
The first evening was quiet. Maria cooked a simple dinner, using the ingredients she had been given. She made a stew with vegetables and rice, careful to make it taste comforting. When she placed the food on the table, she tried to hide her shaking hands. David looked at the meal, then back at her.
"It smells good," he said. "Thank you,"
Maria replied softly, sitting down across from him. She watched as he took a bite, hoping he would like it. He chewed slowly, and then nodded.
"It's very good," he said.
Maria felt a small spark of relief. Perhaps she could do this. Perhaps she could find a place here, even if it would take time. After dinner, they sat in silence for a while. Maria tried to make small talk, asking about the farm, the seasons, and the nearby town. David answered with short sentences, his voice calm but not unkind. Maria noticed that he seemed reserved, almost distant, but she refused to let that discourage her. She reminded herself that trust and friendship take time to build. That night, as Maria lay in the small guest room, she thought about how different everything was. The room was cold, the bed unfamiliar. but she felt a strange sense of hope. She thought about her family back home, about the meals she had cooked with her mother, and about all the times she had worked hard to take care of others. She told herself that she could use those skills here to make a home, to make David see her value beyond appearances. The next morning, Maria woke early, determined to help around the farm. She watched as David fed the animals and tended to the chores. She joined him, doing her best to learn quickly.
She carried buckets, cleaned stalls, and even helped repair a broken fence. David watched her work, occasionally giving a small nod or a brief instruction. Maria noticed that he seemed impressed by her determination, even if he did not say much. Days turned into weeks, and Maria began to settle into a routine. She cooked meals, cleaned the house, and helped with farm chores. Sometimes she felt lonely, especially when neighbors gave her curious or disapproving looks. She knew they were judging her for being a foreigner, for being heavier than most of the women in the town, and for daring to be here. But Maria reminded herself of her mother's words. Kindness and skill would take her far.
She refused to let whispers and stares shake her confidence. Maria also discovered small joys. She learned how to drive the tractor, how to milk the cows, and even how to bake bread that David began to enjoy. Sometimes she and David would share a quiet laugh when something went wrong, like when she accidentally spilled a bucket of water or when a chicken escaped its pen.
Those moments, brief as they were, made her feel a sense of connection she had not expected. Despite her growing confidence, Maria could not ignore the truth. David had expectations. She had overheard him talking to a neighbor once, saying he wanted someone who could run the household and care for children, someone practical and dependable. Maria knew she was not what society considered perfect or beautiful, but she had something else: skills, patience, and a heart willing to love and serve. She decided to speak honestly, even if it embarrassed her. One evening, after a long day of chores, Maria found a quiet moment. She looked at David, who was sitting by the fireplace reading a small book. Her heart pounded as she gathered her courage. "David," she began, her voice soft but firm, "I know I am not what people expect. I am heavier than most women, and I may not look like what you imagined. But I can cook, I can take care of a home, and I can help raise children." David looked up, his expression unreadable. Maria held her breath, unsure if she had made a mistake. He paused, then said quietly, "I see that. I notice the effort you put into everything." "I notice your heart, Maria." For the first time since arriving, she felt truly seen. It was not about her weight, her appearance, or what others thought. It was about her actions, her kindness, and her determination. That night, Maria lay in bed thinking about the long journey she had taken to get here. She realized that life in this new country would not be easy. There would be challenges, misunderstandings, and moments of doubt. But she also realized that she had something stronger than fear. She had courage, skill, and hope. As she drifted off to sleep, Maria whispered a promise to herself. She would work hard, she would stay kind, and she would find a place in this world, no matter what anyone else thought. She was a mail-order bride, yes, but she was also Maria, a strong, resourceful woman with a heart full of love and a mind full of dreams. And that, she knew, was worth more than any first impression. Life on the farm settled into a steady rhythm, but Maria quickly realized that this new life was not without its challenges. Each morning she woke before the sun, careful not to wake David as she prepared breakfast. She loved the smell of sizzling eggs and fresh bread, and she hoped her cooking would bring some warmth to the quiet farmhouse. Even though David often ate in silence, she noticed the small signs of approval: a nod, a quiet thank you, or a hint of a smile. These small gestures encouraged her, and she poured all her energy into the tasks she had been given. The farm work, however, was harder than Maria had imagined. Lifting buckets of water, feeding the animals, and shoveling snow during the cold winter days tested her strength. At first, her muscles ached, and her hands were sore and calloused. She sometimes wondered if she had made a mistake by leaving her family behind. But then she reminded herself why she had come: to build a life that was her own, to prove her worth, and to create a home that mattered.
She refused to let the physical strain stop her. Neighbors often passed by in their trucks or on foot, and Maria could sense the quiet judgment in their glances. Some whispered among themselves, curious about the foreign bride who had arrived in town. At first, Maria felt the sting of their words, imagining what they might be saying about her weight or her accent, but over time she learned to ignore the gossip. Instead, she focused on her actions, cooking, cleaning, caring for the animals, and learning the ways of the farm. She wanted her neighbors to see her not as a stranger, but as a capable, hard-working woman.
One afternoon, a local family invited Maria to help with a small celebration. Their children had a school performance, and the parents asked her to prepare some food.
Maria agreed, happy for the chance to practice her cooking and meet people in the town. She spent hours in the kitchen, carefully preparing traditional Filipino dishes alongside the familiar American favorites she had learned to cook. The family was amazed at the flavors and warmth she brought to the meal. The children laughed and ate heartily, asking Maria to show them how she made each dish.
That day, Maria felt a quiet sense of accomplishment. It was the first time she felt accepted outside the walls of the farmhouse.
She realized that even though people might judge her at first glance, kindness, skill, and patience could help her earn respect. The experience gave her confidence to continue, knowing that she had something valuable to offer the community. David watched her interact with the neighbors from a distance. At first, he had been skeptical about the invitations and social gatherings, preferring the quiet of the farm. But seeing Maria's gentle manner and the way she connected with others softened something inside him. He began to notice not only her skills, but also her courage and resilience. Maria also started keeping a small journal, writing down her thoughts, hopes, and fears. She wrote about the loneliness she sometimes felt in the large farmhouse, the cold nights when she missed her family, and the little triumphs that made her smile. Writing helped her process the changes in her life and reminded her that she was capable of facing difficulties. Her journal became a secret place where she could dream, plan, and reflect without fear of judgment. One day, as spring began to melt the snow and bring life back to the fields, Maria noticed that she was beginning to feel more confident. She had learned to milk the cows efficiently, repair fences, and even manage a small garden where she grew vegetables. She experimented with different recipes, blending Filipino flavors with local ingredients. David began to appreciate the effort she put into the meals, often complimenting her subtly, which made her heart swell with quiet happiness. Despite her progress, Maria knew that acceptance in the town would not come easily. Some neighbors were slow to warm up, watching her with curiosity and occasional doubt. Maria remained patient, smiling and greeting them politely whenever they passed by. She learned to listen to their stories, offer help when she could, and show them through actions that she was trustworthy and kind.
Over time, even the skeptical neighbors began to notice her consistency, her warmth, and her genuine care for others. David, meanwhile, began to share small parts of his own life with Maria.
He told her about his late wife, the challenges of running the farm alone, and the quiet moments he had spent thinking about the future. Maria listened patiently, never interrupting, always showing empathy. Her presence brought a sense of comfort he had not expected. Slowly, he began to rely on her not just for help, but for companionship, valuing her opinion and enjoying her company. One evening, after a long day of planting and tending to the garden, Maria and David sat together on the porch. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Maria felt the warmth of the fading sun on her face and glanced at David, who was staring at the horizon. "Do you ever miss the city?" Maria asked softly.
David shook his head. "I never lived in the city. This farm has always been my home." He paused, then looked at her. "And now, I'm not sure I could imagine it without you here."
She wanted to respond, but words failed her. Instead, she smiled quietly, feeling the unspoken connection between them. It was not love in the way she had read about in stories or seen in movies, but it was something real. Trust, companionship, and mutual respect. As the days turned into weeks, Maria continued to show her dedication to the household and the farm. She woke early to cook breakfast, cleaned the house meticulously, and tended to the animals with care. She even began teaching herself some of the skills David had mastered over the years. From fixing broken tools to understanding the cycles of planting and harvesting. Her determination impressed David, who started noticing that her contributions were essential to the smooth running of the farm. Maria also made time to explore her surroundings. She walked along the quiet roads, visited the local library, and learned about the history of the town. She began to understand the rhythms of rural life, the slow pace, the importance of community, and the value of small acts of kindness. She realized that life on the farm was not just about work. It was about creating a home, forming relationships, and finding meaning in everyday routines. One day, Maria noticed that a young neighbor's child was struggling with reading.
She offered to help, using simple games and stories to make learning fun.
The child responded eagerly, and the parents were grateful. Maria felt a deep sense of satisfaction, realizing that she could make a difference not only in her own home but in the lives of others.
It was a small step, but it mattered to her. David observed these moments silently. He had always been practical, focusing on the farm and its needs, but he began to see Maria in a new light. She was more than a helper. She was a presence that brought warmth, knowledge, and compassion to the community.
He started to appreciate not just what she did, but who she was, a woman of courage, skill, and heart.
As spring turned to summer, Maria's confidence grew.
She no longer felt like an outsider. She laughed more, shared stories from her childhood, and taught David simple Filipino phrases, which he repeated with a smile.
Together they planted a small vegetable garden, painted the fences, and repaired the barn roof. Each task became a moment of connection, a way to understand each other better and build trust.
Maria also began to notice subtle changes in David. He started to smile more, leave small notes of appreciation, and occasionally join her in the kitchen, helping with dinner. It was not grand romance, but it was real, quiet, steady, and meaningful. Maria cherished these moments, knowing that true connection often grew in small, everyday gestures.
Despite the growing warmth between them, Maria remained aware of the challenges that lay ahead. She knew that earning love and acceptance in a new country, in a community that was initially skeptical, would take time.
But she also knew that she had something valuable to offer: her kindness, her skills, and her unwavering determination.
She refused to give up or let doubt cloud her spirit. One evening, as the sun set over the golden fields, Maria reflected on her journey so far. She had left her family, faced loneliness, and adapted to a completely new way of life. Yet she had also discovered strength, resilience, and the quiet power of patience. She realized that life was not about perfection or appearance. It was about effort, heart, and the willingness to keep moving forward. Maria whispered a promise to herself. She would continue to work hard, stay kind, and build a life that mattered. She would find her place in this new world, not by changing who she was, but by showing the world her true self.
And slowly, surely, she began to see that she was not alone. David, the neighbors, and even the small children she helped were beginning to notice, appreciate, and accept her. The warm days of summer brought new life to the farm. Maria had settled into her routine so well that even the neighbors began to notice the change she had brought, not only to the farmhouse but to the small town around it. Children waved at her as she walked down the dusty road, and some of the local women began to ask her for cooking tips. Maria smiled politely, sharing her knowledge with patience and grace, even though she sometimes felt shy or self-conscious about her accent. One morning, as the sun rose over the fields, Maria noticed a small commotion near the barn.
A young neighbor, Lily, was struggling to carry a heavy basket of eggs. Maria quickly stepped forward to help, guiding the girl gently and showing her how to hold the basket so it would not tip.
Lily's eyes brightened as she learned from Maria, and the girl's mother called out a quiet thanks.
It was moments like these that made Maria feel that she was making a real difference.
She realized that her skills were not just for running a household or tending the farm. They were tools for helping others and building a community. Each act of kindness, no matter how small, reminded her that she could belong here, even in a place that had once felt so foreign. David noticed Maria's growing confidence. He had always valued practicality and hard work, but he was beginning to see something deeper: Maria's heart. He had admired her patience and dedication from the beginning, but now he saw how naturally she connected with others, how her warmth could soften even the hardest days. It was a quiet change, almost imperceptible at first, but it made him pause and reflect on his own feelings. One afternoon, a storm approached suddenly, dark clouds rolling over the fields.
Maria and David worked together to secure the animals, cover the tools, and protect the garden. Maria's quick thinking and calm presence impressed David, who realized that he had come to rely on her instincts and judgment.
The storm passed with only minor damage, but the experience brought them closer together. They shared a quiet moment after the rain, standing in the muddy field, drenched but smiling. As the weeks passed, Maria began to feel a deeper connection to the land and to David. She found joy in small routines, baking bread early in the morning, collecting fresh eggs, and tending to the growing garden. She also enjoyed teaching David small things from her culture, simple phrases in Tagalog, or how to make a sweet Filipino dessert. David often laughed at his own mistakes when trying to pronounce the words or follow the recipe, and Maria laughed too, feeling a warmth in her chest she had never known before. Despite these growing moments of happiness, Maria sometimes felt the sting of loneliness.
She missed her family in the Philippines, the laughter of her younger siblings, her mother's gentle advice, and the familiar rhythms of village life. In the quiet evenings, she would write letters home, describing her new life, the beauty of the fields, and the challenges she faced. She carefully folded each letter, imagining the faces of her family as they read her words, and felt a small sense of connection despite the distance. One day, an opportunity arose that tested both Maria's confidence and her growing bond with David. The local elementary school needed a volunteer to help organize a summer program for children. Maria, who had always loved working with children, eagerly offered her help. She organized games, cooking lessons, and simple craft projects. The children responded eagerly, laughing and learning in ways that reminded Maria of her own childhood. David watched from the edge of the playground, feeling a mixture of pride and admiration. He had never seen Maria so fully in her element, surrounded by children and helping them grow. He realized that her abilities went far beyond running a household. She had a gift for nurturing, teaching, and inspiring others. Seeing her in this role made him feel a quiet shift in his heart. He respected her more deeply than ever and found himself wanting to be near her, to share in these moments of joy. Over time, the small community began to notice the changes. The neighbors who had once whispered about the foreign bride began to smile when they saw her, seeking her advice or simply greeting her warmly. It was a slow process, but Maria could feel the walls of skepticism gradually lowering. She understood that trust and acceptance are earned, not given, and she was willing to be patient. Maria also began to sense a subtle shift in David's behavior. He started to include her in decisions about the farm, asking for her opinion on planting schedules or repairs. He left small notes of encouragement in the kitchen, praising her cooking or thanking her for her help. He even began sharing stories from his past, opening up about memories and dreams he had long kept to himself. Maria felt a warmth in her heart each time he did this, realizing that trust and connection were growing between them, even if love had not yet been spoken aloud. One afternoon, while preparing a meal together, Maria noticed that David seemed unusually quiet. She looked at him, concern in her eyes. "Is something wrong?" she asked gently. David shook his head. "No, just thinking," he said. Then he added almost shyly, "I appreciate everything you do, Maria. I've realized how much this farm and my life have changed because of you." Maria felt a surge of happiness and relief. She had worried for so long about whether she would be accepted, whether her weight or her background would prevent David from truly seeing her. Now she realized that her efforts, patience, and kindness had begun to break through the barriers of expectation. Summer continued, and Maria and David shared small, meaningful moments together. They would walk along the edge of the fields in the evening, talking about dreams, sharing laughter, and occasionally sitting in comfortable silence. Maria found herself noticing the little things about David, the way he crinkled his eyes when he smiled, the quiet strength in his hands, and the sincerity in his voice. She began to feel a sense of belonging, not just on the farm, but in his life. Maria's confidence and warmth began to influence others in subtle ways. Children she had taught at the summer program continued to visit, eager to see her and learn new things. Neighbors sought her advice on cooking, gardening, and childcare. She had become a quiet force of positivity in the community, showing that kindness, skill, and patience could earn respect even in a place that had once seemed distant and unwelcoming. David, meanwhile, found himself reflecting on his own feelings more often. He realized that Maria had changed his perspective on many things, on companionship, trust, and what it meant to build a home. He no longer saw her simply as a helper. He saw her as a partner, someone whose presence brought warmth, joy, and stability.
He began to admire her resilience, her dedication, and her unwavering kindness, qualities that he knew would sustain them through any challenge.
One day, a small crisis arose when a young neighbor fell ill with a minor infection.
Maria quickly sprang into action, preparing a comforting meal, bringing medicine, and caring for the child with gentle attentiveness. The family expressed their deep gratitude, and David watched quietly, realizing once again how Maria's heart and skills were making a real difference. He felt proud to have her by his side, not just as a helper, but as someone whose character and compassion enriched everyone around her. As the summer drew to a close, Maria reflected on her journey. She had faced loneliness, cultural differences, and self-doubt, yet she had persevered. She had discovered her own strength, learned new skills, and gradually won the trust and respect of those around her. Most importantly, she had begun to build a quiet, meaningful connection with David, a connection based not on appearances or societal expectations, but on mutual respect, shared experiences, and small acts of kindness. One evening, as the sun set in soft hues of orange and pink, Maria and David stood together on the porch, watching the fields glow in the fading light. Maria felt a quiet contentment she had never known before. She realized that life was not about rushing toward grand gestures or perfect appearances. It was about patience, effort, and the willingness to invest in relationships over time. David looked at her, his expression thoughtful.
"Maria," he said softly, "I've realized that life is better with you here. You've made this place brighter, not just for me, but for everyone around." "I didn't expect to feel this way, but I'm glad you're here." Maria smiled, feeling warmth spread through her chest. She knew that words could not capture all the feelings she had experienced, but she felt seen, appreciated, and valued in a way she had never imagined. As they stood together in the evening light, Maria understood that true connection grows slowly, nurtured by patience, understanding, and shared effort. She had come to a foreign land hoping for a new life, and though it had been difficult, she was beginning to find a place not just on the farm, but in David's heart and in the wider community. Maria whispered a promise to herself, one that echoed the words her mother had given her long ago. Kindness and skill matter more than appearances. She would continue to give her best, to care for those around her, and to nurture the quiet bond that had begun to grow with David. She knew that the journey was far from over, but she felt a deep sense of hope and confidence that together they could face whatever came next. And in that soft, fading light, Maria realized something profound. Life was not about fitting expectations or following rules set by others. Life was about showing your heart, embracing your strengths, and building connections through patience, love, and genuine care. She felt ready for the future, knowing that her courage, resilience, and kindness had already begun to shape a life she could be proud of. As summer slowly gave way to the crisp days of autumn, the farm seemed to change with the season. Golden leaves danced in the wind, and the air carried a faint chill that hinted at the coming winter. Maria woke earlier each day, her body now accustomed to the rhythm of farm life. She had learned to move with purpose and confidence, tending to the animals, preparing meals, and organizing the household with a calm efficiency. Yet, despite all her accomplishments, she could not ignore the growing sense of anticipation in her heart. Something was coming, a test of her courage, her skills, and her place in this new life. One morning, as Maria was gathering eggs from the coop, she noticed David standing at the edge of the field with a letter in his hand. The wind carried the faint rustle of papers as he waved to her. Curious, Maria walked over, her boots sinking slightly into the soft earth. "Maria, this just arrived," David said, handing her the envelope. It was from the town council. Maria opened it carefully and read aloud, her voice steady but tinged with concern. The letter explained that a local event, a community harvest festival, was in trouble. The organizers had fallen behind, and they needed someone to step in and help coordinate meals, activities, and arrangements for the children. It was a big responsibility, and failure could leave a poor impression on the town. Maria paused, thinking of the challenge. Her heart raced, but she felt the spark of determination. This was an opportunity not just to help, but to show the community and David that she belonged. "I can do it," she said firmly. David nodded, a quiet smile on his face. "I know you can," he said. "I'll help however I can, but I trust you to take the lead." The days that followed were filled with planning, organizing, and preparation.
Maria worked tirelessly, coordinating with neighbors, teaching children to help with decorations and small tasks, and preparing dishes that blended her Filipino heritage with local favorites. She taught a group of children how to make small pastries, while others helped arrange tables and set up games.
Her energy was contagious. Soon, the whole community was involved, laughing, learning, and working together under her guidance.
David observed quietly from the sidelines, occasionally stepping in to lend a hand. He had seen Maria grow in confidence and skill over the months, but witnessing her lead the festival preparations revealed a new side of her, a natural ability to bring people together, to inspire, and to create joy in the most challenging circumstances. He felt a deep admiration welling up in his heart. He realized that Maria had become indispensable, not just to the farm, but to him and to the wider community. The festival day arrived, crisp and clear. Tables overflowed with food, children's laughter echoed across the fields, and neighbors mingled, praising Maria's efforts. She moved from place to place, making sure everyone was comfortable, assisting the children with games and checking on the food preparations. Her hands were busy, her mind focused, and yet her heart swelled with pride. She could see the smiles she had helped create, the small sparks of joy in every corner.
At one point, David approached her as she was arranging a row of decorations.
He reached out and gently held her hand. Maria looked at him, surprised, and saw a softness in his eyes that she had not noticed before.
"Maria," he said quietly, "I've watched you these past months. I've seen your kindness, your patience, your strength. You've done more than anyone could have expected. You belong here. Not just on this farm, but in this town, and in my life." She had worked so hard, faced so many doubts, and yet here was David, acknowledging not just her actions, but her heart. Tears threatened to spill, but she held them back, smiling instead. "Thank you, David," she whispered. "That means more than you know." The festival continued into the afternoon, filled with music, laughter, and the smell of delicious food.
Maria moved through the crowd, sharing moments with the children, neighbors, and even a few skeptical locals who now approached her with warmth. She realized that acceptance had been earned not through appearances, but through persistence, kindness, and the willingness to give her best every day. Later, as the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting golden light across the fields, Maria and David sat together on the porch, watching the festival's quiet end. The children were safely at home. Neighbors had returned, and the farm was peaceful once more. Maria felt a sense of deep satisfaction, a feeling that her work, her struggles, and her efforts had all been worthwhile. David turned to her, his voice soft.
"Maria, I want you to know, these past months have shown me what it means to care for someone completely. You've changed my life, and I can't imagine it without you now."
Maria reached for his hand, holding it gently. She thought of the long journey that had brought her here, the loneliness, the culture shock, the doubts about her worth. And she realized how far she had come.
"David," she said, her voice steady, "I feel the same way. I never imagined I could feel at home somewhere so far from my family. But now, I do. Here, with you." Their bond, once tentative and uncertain, had grown into something real and lasting. It was not a sudden, dramatic romance, but a deep connection built on trust, respect, and shared experiences.
Maria knew that life would continue to have challenges, but she felt confident that together they could face anything. As autumn faded into winter, the farm became quieter, blanketed in snow. Maria and David worked together to prepare for the long season, stacking firewood, tending to the animals, and ensuring the house was warm and safe. Maria's confidence and skill made the work easier, and David found joy in sharing the tasks with her.
They laughed together when mistakes were made, comforted each other when chores were exhausting, and celebrated small victories, like a successfully baked loaf of bread or a perfectly repaired fence.
During these quiet months, Maria also strengthened her connection to the children in the community.
She helped with homework, taught simple cooking lessons, and organized winter crafts. The children loved her warmth, patience, and creativity.
Through these small acts, Maria realized that family could be found not just in blood relations, but in the bonds we create through care, attention, and kindness.
One snowy evening, as the wind howled outside, David and Maria sat by the fireplace drinking tea.
Maria's hands were warm around the cup and she watched the flames flicker.
"I never imagined life could be like this," she said softly. "So different from what I knew, yet I feel happy, safe, and loved." David reached over, taking her hand. "You deserve to feel all of that, Maria." "You've earned it. You've earned respect, friendship, and my heart."
Maria smiled, feeling a sense of peace she had never known. She thought of her family back home, imagining how proud they would be of the woman she had become. She realized that the journey had not been easy, but it had taught her resilience, patience, and the power of kindness. She had left her home to seek a new life, and now she had found it. As the weeks passed, Maria and David continued to build their life together. They shared small joys, preparing meals together, tending the animals, walking through the fields, and laughing over simple mistakes.
Each day strengthened their bond, creating a foundation of mutual trust, respect, and quiet love. The community, once skeptical of the foreign bride, had fully embraced Maria. She had earned not just acceptance, but admiration and affection. Her efforts with the children, her skill in cooking, and her unwavering kindness had transformed the way people saw her. Neighbors who had once whispered doubts now greeted her warmly, asking for advice, sharing stories, and including her in town events. Maria felt a deep sense of fulfillment, realizing that her perseverance and heart had changed not only her life but also the lives of those around her. One crisp morning, David and Maria walked along the frozen fields, the sun casting a pale glow over the snow. The silence of winter was peaceful, broken only by the soft crunch of their footsteps. Maria looked at David, feeling a profound sense of gratitude. "I never imagined life could be this full," she said quietly. David squeezed her hand gently.
"Neither did I," he said. "You've brought warmth, joy, and meaning into my life."
"I am grateful every day that you are here." Maria smiled, feeling the weight of the past months lift from her shoulders. She had faced uncertainty, loneliness, and self-doubt, but she had persevered.
She had proven to herself and to everyone around her that her worth was not defined by appearances or expectations, but by her heart, her skills, and her determination. As they returned to the farmhouse, Maria felt a deep sense of belonging. She had found love, friendship, and acceptance in a place that had once seemed foreign and daunting. She knew that challenges would continue, as life always brings surprises, but she felt ready to face them with courage and hope. That evening, as they sat together by the fireplace, David looked at her and said softly, "Maria, this is home. You've made it our home." Maria nodded, feeling tears of joy welling up.
"Yes, it is," she whispered. "Home with you, with this farm, and with the people who have welcomed me."
"I am finally where I belong." And in that quiet, peaceful moment, Maria realized that life had brought her exactly what she had hoped for. Not because it was easy, or perfect, or expected, but because she had dared to be herself, to persevere and to show kindness in every action. She had come to a foreign land seeking a chance, and she had found a life full of love, purpose, and belonging. She knew that the journey was ongoing, but for the first time, Maria felt completely at peace. She had proven to herself that courage, patience, and heart were stronger than fear and doubt. And as the fire crackled warmly in the hearth, she leaned against David, feeling safe, loved, and finally at home.